Be broken to be whole. Twist to be straight. Be empty to be full. Wear out to be renewed. Have little and gain much. Have much and get confused. So wise souls hold to the one and test all things against it. Not showing themselves, they shine forth. Not justifying themselves, they're self-evident. Not praising themselves, they're accomplished. Not competing, they have in all the world no competitor. What they used to say in the old days, be broken to be whole, was that mistaken? Truly, to be whole is to return. I know you guys are tired of this hair. I know you guys are tired of this shirt. And I promise you, this is the last one for a while. Happy New Year to everybody that's watching this on New Year's Day. 2026 is an amazing year, and I cannot wait. Funny that I said that to the person not competing, he will find no competitors, on an episode with a professional kickboxer. I sit down and have a conversation with James Turner, who's a professional kickboxer, actor, all things Renaissance man-ish. It's a wonderful conversation. A lot of great perspective on how to do the thing professionally if you're not teaching, but also just a love and respect for the arts. There is advice for those that are interested in this episode about training tips and things that you could do to improve a fight game if that was your goal. I enjoyed this one. I cannot express how grateful I am for all the people that answer the calls when I put them out. People that I've never met just saying, yeah, I'd love to have a conversation with you. It means the world to me. It expands my martial arts perspective and my technical abilities in ways that I can't quite explain. I do think it's very important for us as humans to find the thing or things that resonate, that ring your bell, and continually ring the bell. You know, get ready for church or temple or whatever. We'll never give back to martial arts what martial arts is given to us, but we can damn sure try. If you're a martial artist and you'd like to be a part of this podcast, if you know a martial artist that you think would be good for this podcast, if you think that I'm incorrect and would like to have Discord with me, keepkickingpod@gmail.com. I want to have the conversations. I love the conversations. I need the conversations. I hope you enjoy this episode. Keep kicking, guys. Bye.
Keep kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic, where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads, and the journey begins. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise. It's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking, keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Keep Kicking, the martial arts podcast, where I have martial conversations with my martial arts friends. And today I sit down with James. James, you want to introduce yourself for the people?
Hi, Paul. Yeah, thank you very much. My name's James Turner. I'm the current WPKO World Light Heavyweight Kickboxing Champion. I'm also an actor in martial arts films. In fact, we're actually currently filming my first leading role in a martial arts action film called The Butterfly, which hopefully we'll get to talk about a little bit at some point during our conversation. But yeah, hello, Paul. Thank you for having me on the show. I am a fan of the show. I will say the phrase "keep kicking" is one I use regularly. Of course, I usually say "keep kicking" N apostrophe, and of course I got that from keep kicking. I got that from Bill Wallace, of course. But so a big fan of the show, and obviously we have the time difference between the UK and Eastern Standard Time. So thank you very much for getting up first thing in the morning and doing this with me. And pleasure to be here.
All good. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So tell us, how'd you get started in martial arts?
Well, yeah, so my initial foray into martial arts, I was, to start with, I'd only seen kind of visual depictions of, generic karate kicks and whatever else, and I was fascinated from a very early age, as far as back as I can remember. And then a schoolmate showed me the fight scene from the Bruce Lee movie Fist of Fury, or the Chinese Connection, where he storms the dojo and takes out everybody. And I saw that when I was a very young and an impressionable age, and the seeds of my lifetime passion were sown, I should say. So saw Bruce Lee, idolized him right off the bat, and was very fortunate within my home county of Cornwall in England to actually, my mum actually found an advert for an instructor who was teaching, Bruce Lee's art, Jeet Kune Do, Jun Fan Kung Fu, Filipino Kali and Eskrima, Indonesian Silat. Also did some kickboxing and some submission grappling and things like that. So I was with Ian and stayed with him for in terms of as long as his academy was actually at that location, and got to my you could say black belt equivalent with him from the age of 12 was I actually formally started, because believe it or not, even though I was a big Bruce Lee fan, I was a shy kid. And
interesting.
Yeah, I know, right? And then with the I was kind of like living in my own little fantasy world of admiring Bruce Lee, but it was actually my mum who gave me the shove. Instead of just kind of like reading magazines and doing it myself, she said, "Go and get some formal instruction from someone." And she took me to, when she found Ian's school, don't get me wrong, and I saw that there was Jeet Kune Do and what have you locally. I mean, I knew I had to go. So she took me, and then I was with Ian for from my, like I say, pre-teen years up through into my early 20s. And at that stage, through that process in my teen years, my formative years, I was, like I say, Bruce Lee inspired me to get into martial arts. And then, of course, you get into all the other martial arts action film stars, which is what I did as a kid. I loved the movies. So I went through them all. Chuck Norris was a big favorite of mine. There's so many. But I found Don the Dragon Wilson. And, of course, he was known for being a world kickboxing champion. And so I always tell people, Bruce Lee inspired me to get into martial arts, and Don Wilson inspired me then to get into kickboxing and become eventually a professional kickboxer. So my instructor, Sifu Ian, actually was very instrumental in that early kind of transition into, he knew I was wanting to gravitate towards the kickboxing end of things. And then by the time I was in adulthood, that was my goal. I went professional as a kickboxer. and still had an eye to doing the martial arts acting thing, which I had done a lot of acting, both formally as a kid. I got a national diploma in acting in college and did all that kind of thing. Did some theatre when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of went on ice for a little while as I pursued the kickboxing passion. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm doing both. Like I say, now I'm world light heavyweight champion and also acting in films at the same time, which was kind of the Don the Dragon Wilson model. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing both currently. So that's really in a nutshell my introduction to martial arts, like you, my
Mm-hmm.
lifetime passion, right? And
Right.
to how I'm kind of going about it now. So
Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah,
so the next question I usually ask is what kept you going, but
yep,
it seems like that's baked in there.
yeah,
Um,
baked in
do
there
you
is a
do
good
do
phrase. Yeah.
yeah, do you think that was there a desire to compete and that's what kept you going, or were you
Yeah,
really just following in their footsteps?
yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
I actually describe that a lot. I use that phrase a lot. In that I'm just following in my hero's footsteps. I guess you could say I'm a big kid in that way
Yeah.
to this
Yeah.
day. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, when I saw Bruce Lee right away, he's in film, so I was fascinated
Mm-hmm.
by the movies. And then, of course, when I saw Don Wilson and found out he was a kickboxer, and at the time there wasn't very much stuff online. The internet
Mm-hmm.
was far less developed than it is now, and through a good friend of mine in Germany, Bernie Willems, who's a collector, I was able to so it's not only the fight scenes you see in these martial arts movies. This Don Wilson guy, you can actually watch his real fights against world class competition, 12 rounds, and so then I developed the interest of competing as well. I wanted to do the
Mm-hmm.
kickboxing thing, and
Mm-hmm.
really, I would say, well, they're both very enjoyable. If you have the aptitude to kickbox, it's kickboxing's fun. The training
Mm-hmm.
is hard work, but when you're used to it, it just becomes part of your
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. And when you actually get in the ring, you enjoy the kickboxing. The film world is fun. Yeah, you know it's coming, right? But
Yeah. Well,
it's long
well,
hours and hard work and a lot of like, oh, I hope it looks just right. Whereas in fighting, you just fight and
right.
it speaks for itself, you know?
Well, a lot of people that fight,
Mm.
like I'll give you the next question. And the next
Sure.
question, some people ask how has fighting like professionally helped your martial art, but we're talking to other martial artists. That's mostly who listens to the podcast. So
Yeah,
like we
absolutely.
kind of already know those answers, right?
Right,
Like
right.
it helps you pressure test your art, right?
Mm,
It helps
definitely.
you peel away, Bruce Lee, discard what's useless and
Mm,
keep what's useful. And then the stuff that's useful, we kind of put more nurturing aspect into it. But
absolutely.
what has kickboxing done for you for your art beyond the pressure test?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think, in a nutshell, I would say that I gravitated because, like you mentioned, the whole JKD kind of ethos of stripping down to the bare essentials. I realized
Mm-hmm.
through watching kickboxing, and you got to remember, like the American full contact karate kickboxing was very
Mm-hmm.
much catering to the in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s, the kind of audience that I was as a kid growing up in the 90s and in the 2000s, because it was these guys had like these long shiny pants and they're throwing all these high spectacular kicks and they've got
Right.
nice boxing technique with it, which of course Bruce Lee
Mm-hmm.
showcased as well. So I think I gravitated toward the punching kicking end of things and importantly the defense against getting hit, which is of course they're
Mm-hmm.
symbiotic in their
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So in terms of hacking away at the unessential, I think even though I recommend everybody be as well-rounded a martial artist as possible,
Mm-hmm.
through my more traditional martial arts background, even though as we know with JKD it really isn't, but I'm just saying between the
Right.
more kind of traditional arts that I learned with the Kali and this and that, I think for me it was a case of gravitating towards what just really stirred the passion for me, which was the
Mm-hmm.
kickboxing. So of course on a regular basis I'm training basically like a boxer, but with the kicks included. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
do recommend, of course, like I say, people learn, but I mean, I'm not practicing forms or self-defense routines on a regular basis like that. Like
Mm-hmm.
some martial artists would be doing that on a weekly basis. I have
Sure.
I'm confident that I have a knowledge, but I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
specialist in several genres of martial arts like many other people are.
Sure.
I really found that kind of kickboxing niche, which of course, interestingly, it started as a sport, as a platform for martial artists. It was of the day. You had karate competitors, the point fighting guys. They wanted to do something that would be a little bit more literally full contact, but also that could make a little bit of money. And what was the popular thing at the time? It was professional boxing. Of course, they started off on the raised platform. They had June-Reese safety gloves, and eventually they went to the boxing gloves, and it was in a ring. So it's kickboxing. Today, interestingly, I mean, if you look at like karate combat, for example, I really feel like that's the MMA generation's beginning of what was done back in the 70s in what I call the boxing generation. That's how kickboxing came about. So I specifically love the kickboxing. I'm still doing that, but I'm just saying the karate combat is kind of like it's like an interesting new iteration of how you get there. So it's kind of answering your question, but I would say for any martial artist, and I found this myself, if I look at it from a pure martial artist perspective, beyond the pressure testing, as you say, which is obviously worth its weight in gold in that respect, but kickboxing specifically, if you're learning through experience, punching and kicking, efficient punching and kicking, and defending against it, like I say, and in my case, against world-class competition, I'm fighting top 10, I'm being the world champion myself. So in that respect, should I be attacked by... Because you're not going to, we don't expect to be attacked by our fellow black belts, right? Yeah. We hope not. I mean, he doesn't quite got the ethos of the martial arts there. But so if we're, even if we're in an unpredictable situation where there could be multiple attackers or maybe even weapons, of course, a predominant thing is protect our loved ones and ourselves and just get out of there as much as possible. If we have to use some techniques, even though you've got to be careful about obviously using a clenched fist because it's very easy to break your hand, but just the idea of limbs flying at you and your ability to defend against it and counter effectively, you're going to have a supreme action-reaction, not overconfidence, but just that awareness, I think. You're going to be sure of yourself in a way that maybe someone who's never had the opportunity to pressure test at all, and they're just confronted, the adrenaline hits and you don't know how to handle it. I think that's a major value. Of course, like I say, though, it behooves martial artists to learn some fundamental grappling skills, weapons, defense awareness, things like that as well. But that's the value of kickboxing to me anyway, in terms of not only in training, but in competition. Just a final note, I know it's a bit of a long answer, but of course it started...
Take all the time.
Oh, thank you.
All the time.
It started as a competitive platform. So you've got full contact karate, and you've got guys from more traditional styles of karate, kung fu, taekwondo, all converging in this competitive environment. Now, little by little, today, as it evolved, kickboxing as we know it, yes, we still get guys with different traditional martial arts backgrounds who gravitate towards what we now call kickboxing. But in terms of styles, I mean, it's really only as different now as you would find professional boxing. Like in boxing, you have a boxer-puncher, a slugger, and within kickboxing, whatever your traditional martial arts background, like all the guys back then were karate. I mean, I technically have a kung fu background, but really at a certain point, you're going to fall into those categories. You either stand your ground, or you maybe you're a bit more of a hit mover. Maybe you like to be as well-rounded as possible, which is kind of like how I like to consider myself, but there's no doubt about it. Early on in the fight, I move a lot, I kick a lot with the lead leg. Yeah, so ultimately, kickboxing, it can be viewed as both a kind of a competitive platform, but also the basic fundamentals in terms of jab, cross, hook, uppercut, front kick, round kick, side kick, whatever the more traditional martial art background is, eventually you have to consolidate and do and be competent with those basic techniques and defenses, which kind of, again, speaks to Bruce's hack away at the unessential kind of ethos. So yeah, there's just some thoughts on kickboxing and how it may be of value in training to any martial artist, really.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry, man. Yeah,
no. Totally fine.
Thank you.
More is better, always. Yeah. I'm American. More is better.
For sure. More horsepower. That's right. I've got my Corvette watch on this morning, by the way. I'm a bit of a Corvette enthusiast. I mentioned to you, didn't I? Yeah. So there you go. More is better. Yeah.
Well, I this is completely off subject. I live in Kentucky, and Kentucky is where the Corvette Museum is made, and
that's where my one was built in 1992. Yeah, I mean, talk about full circle. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty nice.
So tell me how acting has affected your martial arts practice.
Fantastic question, because with if a martial artist like you and I, we would approach acting with the same philosophical backdrop as we do the martial arts. So when you're in martial arts, especially from a young age, you are encouraged, and you're just you're drawn to the mentality of, if I'm learning a martial art, which is not I'm just building my strength and building my fitness. I'm learning the art. I want to be as technically proficient in the art as I can. So when you look at the craft of acting, and you learn about the different methodologies, the different key instructors throughout the decades and the centuries, like Stanislavski and Chekhov, and you learn the craft, so to speak, because you had Shakespeare, and then there was kind of like a period of a few hundred years where traditional acting evolved to just basically melodrama, where you had people up on stage going, "Oh, I'm acting," and all this kind of stuff. And then you, and then you had in the 19th century, you had a situation where, the scholars and practitioners were looking at it from a perspective of, well, how can I make this seem to the viewer as real as possible in the suspension of disbelief? So I've definitely approached acting from, the open-minded student perspective, or tried to, that I do with the martial arts. And I'm very fortunate in that I've got my personal kind of acting mentor, you might say, and I do private lessons with him, is Nick Mancuso, who he starred, funnily enough, in the 80s TV series called Stingray, where he drove a 60s Corvette Stingray, and he used martial arts to beat the bad guys, right? And he was in Rapid Fire with Brandon Lee and Under Siege 1 and 2 with Steven Seagal. So that's probably his martial arts connection that our audience would be most familiar with Nick through. And he's a real master of the craft. I mean, I can't say enough about him in that respect. But certainly through the conscious movement in acting. So say if you're learning a routine for a stage play, for example, in particular, when you're performing to people in the rafters, every movement is very precise. And you're learning choreography. You're identifying with the meaning of what you're doing, which really, even though I mentioned my training is really it's kickboxing, so it's boxing with kicks. That's kind of how I train on a daily basis. I run in the morning, train at night. But for the martial artist who's practicing kata or forms, patterns, rather than just like reciting the routine, it would behoove the martial artist, in my opinion, to learn the kata, how it was developed, what's it based on, what kind of, is it based on like a feudal Japan kind of scenario where these particular techniques would be used? So you put yourself in the mind of what you're doing at that moment, and I think you probably have a deeper appreciation of the kata and therefore the art. That's like one example that comes to mind of how I believe, taking acting lessons could potentially enrich the experience of a martial artist in their training. That would be something that comes to mind. I think it consolidates your perspective and approach to learning, and a humility to know that there's always more to learn. I mean, again, right now, it sounds like I'm repeating it almost as like it's not to be a braggart, but to reiterate, as a world champion kickboxer right now, I'll never stop striving to improve in my skills or my perspective or my attitude, all of that, because that's the martial arts lifestyle, and that will continue, after I've had my last kickboxing match, So that's my perspective on it. Yeah.
So there's two things there. One, and it's important, is the continuing to strive to do better. Because first of all, as a world champion, you're at the top and there's a target on your back. And so you have to be better.
Can't rest on your laurels.
Well, if you did, some 20-year-old kid would, you know what I'm saying?
They'd be looking to exploit that, every day of the week. So,
But so the other thing is that what makes me a good martial artist and what makes me a good teacher is that I'm a really good student, right? And in being a good student, like, I'm just always dissecting things, and you have put something into perspective that no one else has yet, and that is intent, right? And so you have found intent in your art through acting, because you have to do things with more intent. We talk about how there are some people that come into a martial arts school and they just love martial arts so much that they're kind of like curators of the martial arts museum.
Sure. And I respect that, but
absolutely.
There's more to it, isn't there? Yeah.
Right. But like that intent that you have found is the intent that's going to keep you driven for the lifetime, whereas
Right.
my intent, it doesn't have to be your intent, but my intent I have stumbled upon, and that will keep me going forever. And I
Yes,
think
sir.
that if you don't find the intent, then you're not going to be that lifelong practitioner. So that's
I
what's
agree.
interesting to me.
Yes,
I
sir.
want to ask you,
Mm.
so your normal everyday is kickboxing and like the physicality of kickboxing.
Yeah.
Where do you put and how do you fit, and you might not, forms and traditional practice in? Do you do it once a month, once a week? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah,
interested.
absolutely. So there were no forms as such
Mm-hmm.
in the martial arts background that I had. I was always aware of
Yeah.
them, and actually I went out of my way because of just being a martial arts enthusiast. And my instructor Sifu Ian, who taught me Jun Fan and Jeet Kune Do, he was aware of
Yeah.
it. I had an old Lao Gar manual, which was a popular
Okay.
style
Mm-hmm.
spearheaded in the 70s in England, and I was learning Lao
Mm-hmm.
Gar forms out of a book just because I wanted to learn them because I was passionate about martial arts and kung fu. So
It was spearheaded in England?
yeah, as an instructor, he worked in a Chinese restaurant, I believe, and he was an experienced martial artist, and he developed
Okay.
his own system. He called it Laogar, and it actually
Okay.
had a really successful team in competition. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
predominantly in point fighting and light continuous, but they had some full contact
Mm-hmm.
kickboxers there as well. They did very well, and because again, long form, the title is full contact karate, but that you could get
Right.
martial arts from Taekwondo, from Kung Fu, or Tang Soo Do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that Laogar was a prolific, Kung Fu school chain in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always interested for recreational kind of or martial arts hobbyist perspectives to learn that kind of thing. As for now, I memorized some of the things that I learned back then, but that in terms of forms practice and technique consolidation in that way, there's a couple of things. On the one hand, if I'm working on fight choreography, you really have to kind of confront, real specific
Sure.
timed movements.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as my kickboxing training goes, even though once in a while when I'm in the gym in the evening, I'll take the time to work on a specific technique, and it's almost kind of like kata form practice because you're working a particular technique. Let's say I'm working
Mm-hmm.
I'm a southpaw. I'm working my overhand left, and I'm going to work it on the heavy
Mm-hmm.
bag. I really want to get the most out
Mm-hmm.
of it. I'll set a timer, and I won't
Mm-hmm.
do it for reps to get a workout out of it. I'll just move
Mm-hmm.
around the bag and take my time, and I'll set it up, and I'll throw that technique, experiment with body weight shifting and
Mm-hmm.
timing, head placement, foot pivot, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
things, torque on the wrist, and I'll just work it over and over and over again until I feel satisfied that the technique is improving in its execution in all
Mm-hmm.
respects. So there's that end of things, but on a day-to-day basis, like I say, I don't necessarily have like a technique week or a technique month, although that sounds like a pretty cool idea. What I do is because I'm at a level of experience now, for the most part, most of the time, if I'm looking to get a technique in my arsenal more, for
Mm-hmm.
example, one of my key workouts I got from Bill Superfoot Wallace, and I use this one a lot when I'm
Okay.
training for a fight. So in the morning, I run 5 miles. I go into the gym. If it's a weight in the evening, if it's a weight training day, I will have just done my half-hour weight training workout as well. That's just 3 days a week, the weights. But the kickboxing and the running is 6 days
Mm-hmm.
a week. So I run in the morning.
Sure.
Yeah, and then so if I'm kickboxing, now the first thing I do in this particular workout is I work the heavy bag for 8 rounds. Then I do 4 rounds
Mm-hmm.
with the shadow boxing, hands only. Then four
Mm-hmm.
rounds on the jump rope, which I generally just do straight through. I don't take the breaks. I just go for time. And then 7 rounds of shadow kickboxing, hands and feet. Yeah, just 7 rounds. And you just just seven. Well, I say just. It sounds funny. Bill told me. He said the heavy bag. You go in there, and you're building that power and endurance. You're working the heavy bag. He said, and afterwards, he said it's all downhill. You see, he's relaxed. And let the technique go. It sounds crazy to do all that amount of work because it's very cardio intensive, of course. But he says, you shadow box, you jump on the rope, and then you're just punching and kicking, and you relax, but you're snapping, you go in speed, and blah 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 blah. And of course, with all the running and everything, you do develop a certain aptitude
Mm-hmm.
for these kind of. You get the itch to challenge yourself cardiovascularly.
For
Like that. So
sure.
you can get very comfortable when you got a full sweat and you got your music playing, throw as many punches and kicks as possible. But I'll often work, like I say, a combination or a technique. In the evening, I've got 7 rounds a night to work on all the technique I want to work on. Now, if I feel like it requires dedicated time to slow down and work it without worrying about getting a workout out of it, then like I say, I'll do that technique consolidation. I'll take some time while I go to the gym, either before or after my workout, usually before when you're fresh, and I'll work on a technique a little bit. But for the most part, if I want to try a new combination or what have you, I've got time in that round. I'll sidestep, I'll pivot off, and I'll visualize my opponent in my mind. I'll set my room, and then I'll just throw it, and I'll keep throwing it until I put these particular techniques together in a way that feels natural. So that's really, like I say, with the kickboxing training I do on the regular, even though it's very, it's cardio intensive, I've got plenty of time to train my techniques there. And of course, even when you're sparring, I mean, I spar predominantly with friends of mine, training partners. We spar with an element of realism, but we're not trying to kill each other. So if I'm, if I'm trying to work a technique, I'll try to set it up and use it in sparring. A lot of the time, technique, as martial artists, we're very obsessed, and rightly so, with perfect technique. Well, I want to make sure if I'm throwing my left cross, okay, so it starts, I'm turning the ball of the foot, the knees going in, the hip, the shoulder, hands last thing to go, my chin is down, I'm looking up through the brow line, the shoulder comes up to meet my jaw here, my offhand is up high on the head, and so now I've walled off as much opportunity for counter as possible. But a lot of the times when you're sparring, even beyond perfect technique, we see people who don't necessarily have perfect technique, but they have fantastic timing. And they'll land everything, even though it doesn't look textbook. It's not necessarily someone I would show, like say, I take a fighter, for example. There are some who I wouldn't necessarily show a beginner and say, fight just like this. But when they're like a brown, you know what I mean? But when they're a brown belt or a black belt, you might say, okay, now you know what you're looking at when it comes to, if I'm talking to Paul Coffey, I'll say, Paul, you know what you know what you're looking at when it comes to technique. So obviously we can disregard the fact that this guy's taking major chances coming in with his chin up and his hands down. But you notice how he lands everything, and he's never there to be countered. Isn't that fascinating? There's something he's doing there that we can learn from. So just a little bit of color onto the whole technique consolidation end of things. But you can probably tell I am a technical student, and it is a great passion of mine in terms of the technique of the martial arts, but not historically a kata practitioner. And in terms of practicing my kickboxing technique, I've got a lot of time to do it through those many rounds of shadow boxing and bag rounds, which is predominantly where I get to do it. I think the fight choreography stuff is good, as well as teaching martial arts, because you are forced to explain what you're doing right down to the microcosm to make sure everybody understands it, which I think is fantastic for your own technique consolidation. So that would be my answer not in a nutshell. I can't use that one anymore. That was like a 10-minute answer.
No, we like the long answers. That's what makes the show.
There we go.
Well, that's the other reason that I started this, is because you're a world champion, right? And you could post a video where you're doing a technique, and in the comments there's going to be people going, that would never work, because that's the internet that we have, and this is long form, so that I can we have more time to explain.
Absolutely.
Last fighting question.
Yes, sir.
I think so, but and that is, what advice would you give to anybody that's watching this, that's thinking about getting into fighting, or maybe is about to take their first match? Just a very general, what advice do you have for up and comer fighters? Okay,
well, the first thing is, it's good that you're thinking about fighting, if I'm speaking to someone who is, because you need to be thinking about doing it. But ultimately, it can't be for someone else. I don't believe anybody should ever be pressured or coerced into being a kickboxer or an MMA fighter or whatever. It's not for everybody to gravitate towards competition. And especially in terms of full contact martial arts, like kickboxing or what have you, I often joke with people. I say, you're probably smarter than me not to do it. But if you are you know what I mean? But if you are so inclined to do it, I mean, everybody's got different motivations, but I can only say that if you feel the way I do about it, and when I first got into it and still do today, then you should do it, because you're not going to be able to scratch that itch in any other way. And you're passionate about the martial arts in that respect, that you at least want to explore this avenue, or this is the avenue you really feel yourself being pulled towards. So first of all, that's the main thing. You've got to want to do it. beyond that, I would say if you want to do it and give it your best shot, disciplined daily training is, I think it's good to get in the habit of disciplined daily training. When by daily, I mean it could be 5 or 6 days a week, but you know, you need to have some rest. But traditionally in boxing and kickboxing, you know, you're probably doing up to, some people do 3, but I would say 2 to 3 workouts a day. The third one might be some kind of supplemental, like weight training routine or something. Like I mentioned, I do my weight training and kickboxing 3 nights a week. I do both together. So I do the weights and then I do the kickboxing after that. So I still just count that as 2 training times a day. But certainly at least once or twice a day, whatever competition you're doing, you want to have daily practice, get in the habit of that. And then in an ideal world, I would say set the date for the competition once you're already in the disciplined habit of regular daily practice and training for your art or your discipline. And then you can gravitate towards actually training with a date in mind where you can peak. So, yeah, in a nutshell, my advice would be if you want to do it, then go all in 100%, train hard, be disciplined, dedicated, do everything that you know you should do. Of course, you can overtrain. So be careful, don't train recklessly or get yourself sick or injured. Prioritize, you know, good nutrition, good sleep, and just live, you know, a good, clean, healthy martial arts lifestyle, which, you know, we'd hope I think certainly the Keep Kicking listeners will be well familiar with. Yeah, dedicate yourself and train hard. I mean, obviously, I've got a book out called Full Contact Kickboxing, a complete guide to training and strategies. And we're going to do a full follow-up next year called the Complete Kickboxer. So if anybody would like to know my more specific protocols for training, of course, they can find that book out there in the wild. But I don't want to
link it.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I don't want to patronize martial artists of various disciplines. I would say do what you know to be tried and true and train hard and commit to it and just give it your best shot because there's no downside to being a competitor. You win and that's great. I hope that a good martial artist wouldn't just go and celebrate, no, I won and that's it, like we talked about. I'd hope they'd take lessons anyway. But if they were to suffer a defeat, they definitely got opportunity for learning to then improve and become a better martial artist, which is what it's all about for us. And then you'll be better armored to go and get your victory next time. So there's no downside to being a competitor. So that's the way I would look at it. If you want to do it, then go for it. That's my I'll throw my hand into that one.
Yeah, for sure. So next, let's go into the acting. And first of all, I've never acted. Like that's not something that I've done, but I've been on the other side of the camera producing, and I have also done fight and stunt choreography. I found that for me, fight choreography and stunt choreography actually helped me be a better teacher because I was now explaining how to do the physicality to people that are not always physical or not always martial artists. Or have you noticed that? Do you do all of the choreography for stuff that you're in? Or
yes, sir. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Paul. And you know well from your experience that it's kind of like a trifecta effect. You've got your martial arts knowledge, the ability to teach it, and now the ability to create a visually interesting, and depending on the context of the film, but you know, reasonably realistic. You know, even if your film's somewhat fantastical, you're not generally going to put in a fight scene where the techniques look so completely out of whack that it's like, well, this doesn't even look like a fight, unless you're using some pretty extensive CG. So you've had the trifecta experience, as I call it, and I absolutely agree that. Being able to choreograph people in terms of like a fight scene for a film or stage or what have you. I mean, again, not my martial arts domain, but how different is that from teaching someone a kata, for example?
It's
you know what I mean? It can't be, right?
It's the exact same
deal. Right. So it can only help, the different layers. Absolutely. And my thing with the choreography is because I do teach kickboxing twice a week at a gym here in Cornwall, and I do take on some private students, and I really do enjoy teaching. It's something I think in martial arts, many of us, we do gravitate towards teaching, and we're very passionate about passing our skills on to the next potential
Absolutely.
students who would be good representatives of what we do, and that's great. That speaks to the curation of the art thing that you were talking about earlier. We have that in us, no doubt.
sure.
Well, like I must say, when I was coming, it was not my ambition. One day I will be a teacher and own a chain of schools. That was never really my thing. I want to be a kickboxing world champion and an actor in martial arts action films. And now, in my mid-30s, believe it or not, I'm finally able to do both, which is nice. But I still enjoy teaching, and I do have, it's nice for me to be able to do it, and I have the time to still be able to share it. My students that I teach at the gym I teach at twice a week, for me, quite honestly, it's something I do. I do get some remuneration for it, which is nice. But honestly, it's me hanging out with my friends, and I'm able to kind of share what I love and check this combination out. Let's see you guys do it, and love seeing people develop in that way. And through doing the choreography in films, where, as you say, sometimes this guy's going to get hit by something. Let's say this is a complete non-martial artist. He's just an actor. Maybe someone who's maybe a little older, not very physically active, and you got to do a little bit of a risk assessment kind of on that, because we're not talking about someone who's athletically inclined at all. And I know you've been in this position, so now I'm really this is kind of like pulling at the weeds of your ability to, as you say, teach. You know what I mean?
Right,
So if I can handle this and get this looking pretty decent, especially by the time it's been through the editor, that's not my responsibility, but you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? If you can get it looking pretty decent, then that's only going to consolidate and deepen your understanding of how to actually teach your techniques or your tactics or your combat approach, self-defense approach to whatever it is you're teaching, kata form. So yeah, there's definitely a relationship between the two. And I would say to any martial artist out there, if you're gaining experience in your martial arts and you have a certain level of like I say, experience in terms of teaching and sharing your knowledge, if you get the opportunity to if you're in the realm of the kind of film or performance or dramatics, and you have the opportunity to be, even if you're not the predominant choreographer, if you're just involved in working on staging fight sequences for whatever medium, I would definitely recommend martial artists take the opportunity to do it, because I do think it's an enriching experience in that respect.
Absolutely. It allows us to tell story through action.
Oh, well said. And that's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. How'd you get started in acting?
Yeah, well, to start with, it was a kind of a two-layered thing. One, when I saw Bruce Lee, his medium was films. So as a young, impressionable kid, it's like, right, I'm doing that one day, and that's what I'm going to start gravitating towards. So there was that. Now, concurrently, I come from a musical family. Both my parents were accomplished musicians, and I was singing and doing all that kind of thing from an early age. Still do some music now for fun.
Okay.
Although I kind of, at a certain point, I always keep my voice in shape, just kind of like you would a muscle. So I love my music, and I listen to music on a daily basis when I'm running and I'm training. I've got a vast collection of like American classic rock, and I love my 70s, 80s, 90s stuff. I'm well into all of that. But I held back a little bit in terms of professional music engagements, because I found that I wanted to be the martial arts guy who happens to really love his music and will tell people that he loves his music if you ask him. But I was, I used to do Elvis impersonations. And
you did
what? I got right. Now my tempo is not that sharp, but as far as the you know what I mean. But as far as just singing the song, that was fine. I like to think I did okay at that. So, but what happens is once you've done it's. People remember that as a young impressionable kid, I love Bruce Lee. I love Elvis too. I love Chuck Norris, all this stuff. So people remembered me doing the Elvis stuff, at school plays and stuff. And I started when I was doing a little bit of club singing. People would start requesting, James, could you still do the Elvis thing? I was like, yeah, I'm sure I could. So I get my rhinestone suit out and all that kind of thing. And little by little, before long, I'm just being asked to do Elvis left, right, and center. So you're almost being kind of coerced into being a full-time Elvis impersonator. Now, I'm a fan of several Elvis impersonators, even some sadly passed away and some are still going. There are some great ones out there and I'm aware of them. But I didn't necessarily, it didn't feel in my heart like that's all I wanted to do with all of my time. Just go and do Elvis impersonations as a career.
Sure.
So I found in music, I was kind of being pulled away in my mind from being able to commit in the way I wanted to at the time to my kickboxing, which is what was very intensive, twice a day, 6 days a week was the way. So even when I didn't, and now when I haven't got a fight coming up, I try to take the best part of the weekends off and just fully recover, train Monday to Friday, Then when depending on where I am in proximity to an actual fight date, I'll train 6 days a week, twice a day. But back then I was really overtraining back then. I was like training like I was for a fight 6 days a week all the time, which is silly, but I was in my early 20s. And in my mind at the time, I thought, well, I can't do both. So I pulled back from the music.
You could do it differently in your early 20s though too. Yeah. So
there's that. Recovery is a big thing. It's a real thing. Yeah. The time it takes is a real thing, my friend. Yes, sir. So I was already in that kind of musical performance. I went to a stage school for many years at the weekends where you basically learn acting, singing, dancing. So I was certainly gravitating and on the path to doing performing arts. Now, like I say, I kind of took a bit of a hiatus from that for several years just to go and really get fully immersed in the professional kickboxing world, because I knew that's what it was going to take to accomplish my goal of becoming a world champion. Now, in the last several years, right before I got to fight for my biggest title so far, which is the one I currently hold, the WPKO world title, I was then much more comfortable being able to do both. You know, I figured out how to manage everything. I basically manage my own training for the kickboxing. You know, I acquire sparring partners, or even I'm happy to say, you know, I'm friends with, you know, most of the legends I grew up idolizing. And so I can consult with them and I get them to be like a watchful eye on my own kickboxing. And I ask, they give me advice and things like that, which is great, which you should always be open-minded to, you know, as a martial artist, as you well know. I'd never try to say, well, I'm a world champion now like them, so I don't need to, you know. For one thing, it's the friendship is the most important thing with these people. I would never just like, oh, thanks for your help, bye. I know it all now. I can always learn more from those guys because they were golden era before me. They're the best of the best, and I've got those friendships, and we're always talking martial arts, so that's great. But between like I say, the period where I kind of took a bit of a hiatus, did the kickboxing thing, and came back to it, that was kind of at the behest of some of my friends in the martial arts who were also kind of traversing into the film world. It got to a point where I put it on hiatus for long enough that it kind of became that little uncomfortable question that was like in the corner. Like, you see what I mean? It was like, James, when are you going to do the films thing? Because I know you want to do films. I thought, well, I'm on the way to the world kickboxing title. And, you know, there are in kickboxing, if you want to do full contact, above the waist, long pants kickboxing like me, it's not the most thriving sport in the world. So there were, you know what I mean? That there were periods where fights would fall through, or I couldn't get a fight, and this and that. I had like a period of wilderness years, you might say. And then I was invited in 2017. He's like a Mount Rushmore kickboxer for me. He was the only guy who was consistently fighting full contact through the 2000s, 2010s. And he's on that, in terms of like technique, he's just like it for me. He was like Don the Dragon Wilson when I first saw him. A guy called Massimo Brizzi from Italy. And he was a world champion. I was a fan of his. I stayed in touch. And then when he retired, he said, look, I'm going to get more into promoting. Why don't you come and fight for me? So that's why now I predominantly fight in Italy, and I'm a loyal stalwart of his IKTA association, which he spearheads in Europe. And so then I had an actual path and a trajectory for my kickboxing career. I was aligned with people who were on the same kind of page as me, people I respected, enthusiastic about working with, which kind of in a way you think, well, okay, well now your kickboxing career is taken off like never before. Yes, but it also then afforded me the time and the mental kind of capacity to look at the acting again. Because now I have dates in the diary that I know that these are when the fight events are, and you can work towards them, etc. And so when people started saying to me, James, you know, when are you going to start doing the film thing? There's a guy in the UK, he's called Andrew Staten, and he's a bit of a legend, I will say that, because he's basically been the curator of all things Bruce Lee since the 70s, 80s, when he was a very young man. When I was a kid, getting martial arts magazines and documentaries and this and that, all the writing, all the text, all the consulting. If you look at the credits, Andrew Staten's name's on there. And he would see me at the UK Martial Arts Show. I'd be promoting my kickboxing book or teaching seminars or whatever else. And he knew of me because we'd spoken in the past, and I told him I'd grown up reading his stuff, and big film fan, done some acting, have an eye to it someday. But it got to the point where he'd see me at this show on an annual basis, and he was joking because he knew it hadn't happened. He said, James, I haven't seen you in any films recently. And I'm going, oh, yeah, the films. Well, I trying to, stuck for words. One year he comes over, he says it again. And he says, James, look, come up to the booth with me. We're going to do an interview for World of Martial Arts Television. And you're basically going to tell everybody who you are and your kickboxing and all the rest of it. And you're going to tell them of your intention to act in martial arts films. Like soon, imminently. So I went along and I did this interview with Andrew. And I guess, drawing your destiny towards,
Sure.
Kind of like the way the universe works in that respect. Right after that, Nick Mancuso, who I've been in touch with because I was doing an article for the Corvette Club magazine about the Stingray TV show, he was saying, James, you should think about a career in films. And I was like, well, it's funny you should say that, Nick, because just this past weekend, I've been drawn into this interview and all that, and everything just started falling into place. Before I knew where I was, I had a part in Dracula Rise of the Vampire, which was produced and directed by Dean Meadows, who's a big luminary in the martial arts kind of film world in the UK and in Europe. And it's just kind of snowballed from there. I'm very fortunate because what happens is in acting, you can spend many years kind of toiling in obscurity and going to auditions.
Sure.
And when I was in my early 20s and wanted to do the kickboxing thing, I didn't really like the idea of spending so much time and commitment on that while also trying to do the kickboxing thing as I was getting my feet wet doing that. And by the way, I got to earn a living as well while I'm doing all this. So I definitely put the acting on ice. But as it turns out, I kind of have come in through the back door. I've always respected the craft of acting, and I've kept myself sharp in that respect. And going off, pursuing kickboxing, making a name for myself there and becoming well known in the martial arts community, you might say, I've been able to now come back. And there's actually, I'm very grateful, there's interest in myself appearing in films with some of the other well-known luminaries of my friends in the martial arts. So it's kind of worked out nicely in that way. And I'm very grateful that it has. Anybody listening, it sounds cliche, but I can assure you that hard work and a commitment to what you're passionate about and letting nature take its course in that respect, it does pay off in the long run.
It's not just that though. What you're doing is a traditional martial arts technique where you take it all in, you have an evaluation of what you're wanting to do, but you laser focused on the one path.
Yes,
and that laser focus is like very, very important. Like you say that you're not a traditional martial arts practitioner, but you have a lot of traditional martial arts practitioner aspects.
Thank you very much. And that's certainly a compliment because, without the traditions and the virtues and the values of martial arts, what are we doing? We're just teaching people how to fight, teaching bullies.
Right.
Yeah, that's not good.
Right.
I think some people have the expectation or make the connotation that if you're a professional fighter, you must just be some kind of violently inclined thug. But in my case, that couldn't be further from the truth. And I think, the founders of full contact karate kickboxing in the 70s, I mean, they were all traditional martial artists who were competing and then they developed the sport. And I really do consider the discipline that I do. I mean, like I say, you wouldn't do full contact kickboxing today if you just wanted to fight because it is very specifically its own sport with its own kind of history and roots in the traditional martial arts. And as I mentioned earlier, while it started as a competitive platform, strangely, only being 50 years old, it's now in some respects a traditional martial art in itself because you remember when it started and people would say, oh, I don't know, this is not... Ed Parker didn't want Bill Wallace to do it. He thought it was going to be... You probably know this. It was going to be bad for karate and you shouldn't do it. Well, today, I mean, there are certain organizations that carry the title of kickboxing in them. But of course, the more universally accepted rule set now is basically the K1 rules from Japan.
Yes.
And the Dutch like that style a lot as well. You kick the legs, you knee, and you can throw the hands. And it's kind of all fallen into this umbrella term of kickboxing. And I do believe that, the Japanese discipline, their kind of version of Muay Thai that they were doing in the 60s, the English translation literally was kickboxing. So that predates our full contact a little bit. But as far as the Western Hemisphere is concerned, I mean, we all know since Benny Urquidez was regularly calling it this in 1975, kickboxing is the long pants, the kicks above the waist, all that kind of thing. So I do feel now that when I'm explaining it to people, they say, oh, you're kickboxing, what's kickboxing? And they might be thinking about, Muay Thai or whatever else. And I say we can call it full contact kickboxing, American kickboxing, and a term that's been thrown out there a few times by some friends of mine or what have you, and it's a good one. It sounds almost to us who know the martial arts history, we find it quite funny and ironic, but it's a good term: traditional kickboxing. You know what I mean? It sounds crazy, right? Because that's how you delineate that it's this one as opposed to that one, which sounds bizarre, right, Paul? I mean, whoever would have thought you would have heard that? Because it was the very point that it wasn't traditional. That was the problem, supposedly. But now
that sounds very American because we're going to say something that's like 50 years old as traditional.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, Corvettes are only 70 years old, but they're an American tradition like no other, right? So
That's
yeah,
right.
we can roll with that.
Right.
Absolutely. But yeah, I think it's interesting how, like you say, just that kind of period of time. I think in 2025, I like to think anyway, which is why I'm passionate about it, is that that discipline of kickboxing, the full contact karate, American kickboxing, I think it's a real nice representation of, particularly with the history of Western and American martial arts as well, like
Hmm.
the traditional karate through to this very exciting televised movie depicted martial arts sport. Um, as a child of the 90s, it just captured everything that I was growing up and
Right,
being
right,
exposed
right,
to.
right.
So there's nostalgic appreciation there. But I think compared to some of the more prominent fight world figures that you see today and the kind of
Mm,
the way they present themselves and the kind of attitude that they put out there to the public, which might draw stereotypes of what fighters are and what they're all about. I
absolutely, yeah.
think full contact karate kickboxing stands very nicely as a viable alternative, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Just
No, I
that's
agree.
my 2 cents on that one. Yes, sir. I thought you
Right,
might. So yeah,
right.
there we go.
Traditional kickboxing, as it
Right?
is.
Who would have thought? There it is, Paul. Yeah.
So tell us about this film that you're going to be the lead in.
Yeah, thank you. So the movie is called The
Yeah.
Butterfly, and I was hooked up with a director, a very accomplished director, filmmaker in Italy called Matteo Scarfo, who is the third cousin of Nick Mancuso. So Nick put us in
Hmm.
touch, and Matteo's done several very successful short films. He's also had features. He's one feature that he did called Last Son of the Night. That actually is available on DVD in the US and North America, Canada as
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
through Bayview Entertainment, which is a really prestigious label. I mean, when I was a teenager, I was picking up Bayview stuff all the time. In England, you have
Hmm.
to import the Region 1 North American DVDs and make sure you've got a multi-region player, or else your
Yeah, yeah,
NTSC
yeah.
North, it won't work. So I'm very, for my childhood nostalgia, the fact that I'm
Hmm.
working with this director who has Bayview Entertainment films out there, I thought
Hmm.
that was really cool. And this one, we're doing the same thing. He had the idea. He said, James, I think we could do a feature, where you're he kind of designed the story around me. So I play a kickboxer, but Mateo's got he's got a knack for the dramatic, the tense, the real
Hmm.
the kind of difficult, somewhat uncomfortable storytelling elements of like a well-written film, where my
Hmm.
character, he's a kickboxer, and he's in the vein of what, because I've helped flesh the character out and the way the kickboxer would be portrayed, of course. He's in the vein of what we're talking about. Like, as far as the public can see, he's an upstanding, athlete. He's a good sportsman. He said he's got those
Hmm.
traditional martial arts values. Oh, what a great guy. Oh, yeah, good old Liam the Butterfly Marshall is the character. Good on you, Liam. What a great guy.
Hmm.
Well, it turns out in his other life, he's this prolific criminal, and he's involved in thefts, and he's so you could argue kind of like it's more of like kind of like an extortion kind of business that he's in as the story is
That's
developing
a
here.
that's a brilliant character study.
Kind of like duality thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Of course he's at the point because he was kind of, you could argue, if not born into it, family connections as he was growing up kind of led him down this path.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
ultimately,
Hmm.
he just, it's not like he was like kind of chained up and pulled into it. At a certain point, he made the executive decision that, oh, it makes sense. This can make me some money. He might have justified it to
Hmm.
himself. I'm not really hurting anybody too badly. I'll
Hmm.
go into this
Hmm.
world. Now, as the film's developing, he's wanting out. He wants to move away from that. But of course, the powers that be within the organization, particularly the boss Sharky, played by the new Dracula himself, Peter Jackson, he's not going to let. Yeah, I'm happy to say I managed to acquire the great Mr. Jackson for this film, which I'm very grateful for. But
That's
he
awesome.
doesn't. Well, thank you. Yeah, he doesn't want to let Liam leave so easily, of course. So now
Hmm.
now that the battle is on. So in
Hmm.
the film, we see Liam. He's having some key kickboxing fights throughout his career, but he's barely been able to train for them with focus because of all the crazy stuff that's going on in his personal life, or professional life, you might call it.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's an interesting movie. We've shot quite a bit of it, and we're still kind of going over certain scenes and some of the script ideas in terms of how we're going to actually execute it, even to this point. So
Hmm.
it's an interesting process. I hope people like it. We're hoping it's going to be out I imagine realistically, by the time you'll be able to hold your North American DVD of it in your hand, I reckon it's probably going to be about 2027. Of course, I'm
Okay.
talking pretty old school. I'm not even saying Blu-ray. I'm saying DVD. But I mean,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
expect, as far as I'm aware, it's going to be available on various streaming services and what have you. It
Mm-hmm.
will be easily accessible when it's out, basically. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so looking forward
And
to it.
are you gonna do all the fight choreography?
Yes, I actually have done to this point, and it's been
Okay.
I've had help. I mean, I'm not going to say it's just all me coming up with everything all the time. Like my I always call he's my first martial arts instructor, but he's really my martial arts instructor. I mean, I've
Mm.
been very grateful that I've been awarded a black belt in kickboxing from Massimo Brizzi, who, like I say, was a big idol of mine when I came into the IKTA, and he basically could tell that I'd picked up everything that I could from watching him fight over the years, and that's very nice. So I teach his
Right.
kickboxing syllabus now in the UK, and I've
Mm-hmm.
had great opportunity to train with various martial artists over the years and learn from them. But I mean, Ian really giving me my, like I say, more traditional grounding in the martial arts. He's my, my formative martial arts instructor. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a kind of like a nice full circle thing, because he's helping me with the film. He's been location scouting. He's been advising on the script, coming out with ideas in that
Mm-hmm.
regard. And certainly he's been on set and kind of, helping me out. I'll say to Ian, what do you think of this? Because I've got and he'll give me some ideas on the choreography as
Mm-hmm.
well. So I'm the one with the name on the credit in terms of fight choreographer. But of course, as you know
Mm-hmm.
yourself,
Mm-hmm.
it's always a collaborative effort where,
For sure.
that
For
pushes
sure.
us all forward, So it's important to remember as well, as a, if you're a martial artist, to anybody listening, if you find yourself in a position where you're at the front getting all the claps and the accolades, I mean, I don't want to be patronizing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure most of our
Mm-hmm.
audience know this already, but particularly you younger guys who are full of PISS and vinegar, it's just remember, it's a
Mm-hmm.
collaborative effort. We push each other forward, and stay humble, stay grateful, and you can't go too far wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so same question, different lens.
Yes, sir.
What advice would you give to any martial artist that's looking at this that would like to start acting?
Very good question. The first thing I would say is look into learning the craft, much like you would in martial arts. Take acting lessons. Even if you have access to like a local community amateur drama association, something like that,
Absolutely.
you may find
Mm-hmm.
yourself doing musical theater, which I spent an inordinate amount of
Mm-hmm.
time of my formative years doing as well. But that's good. It's all good experience.
Mm-hmm.
Just go and throw yourself
Mm-hmm.
in. You're not going to be doing the stage version of Enter the Dragon on your second week of acting lessons. It doesn't work out that
Absolutely.
quick, but it's all good stuff, and consider it, money in the bank in terms of your wealth of experience and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that you'll be able to curate and develop as you move forward, and be able to channel into the right direction. So start acting. And the thing is, it's difficult to give this advice without sounding insincere, because I can honestly say over the years I have reached out to martial artists from the perspective of just appreciation. Like I say, I'm a big kid, really. I'm a fan. So
Right,
everything I
right.
do, I'm following in the footsteps. And for example, Massimo Brizzi, when I first reached out to him in Italy, I just wanted to let him know I was a big fan and really admired him in this
Mm-hmm.
modern era, sticking to his guns with his full contact kickboxing career, and everybody else was moving
Right.
to K1 and MMA. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
nothing against those sports, but I just said, this is really cool
Right.
what you're doing. Fast
Sure.
forward so many years, he invites me to come and fight for him and work towards the world title. Now, I did
Right.
not expect that. I did
Mm-hmm.
not message him on Facebook all those years ago with an agenda to that
Right,
outcome.
right, right, right,
But
right.
it will not hurt, I will say, martial artists out there, to circulate and just if you're obviously wanting to do this for a reason, you're obviously inspired to want to be acting in martial arts films, what have you. So
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid. The martial arts, we're the good ones. I mean, we're a friendly bunch. Don't be afraid to reach out, make connections, and say hello to people. Don't be so
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I guess, like barefaced about it.
Mm.
My dad always told me growing up. He said, if you chase money, it'll run away from you. If you chase success, money will come to you. Now, this is kind of the thing. If you genuinely reach out to a martial artist with appreciation of them, I think that's a very
Mm-hmm.
healthy attitude to go into it with. Because I can honestly say that's always what I did. I don't go around asking people things necessarily with agendas. I mean, there are times, don't get me wrong, if I'm reaching out to a distributor who could potentially work on a film, what have you,
Sure.
there is that. But most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I've just found myself making contact with people or bumping into people at events and what have you, and
Mm-hmm.
things have just evolved from there, which is very nice. So be visible, circulate. It's in the kind of social media world where we live, where I'm sure Paul and I'm sure I'm going to jump the gun here a bit and say that I'm sure you could empathize a little bit with what I'm saying here as a martial artist. Sometimes the world can feel all a little bit superficial sometimes. The social media thing, just a little bit, right? It's all just for the moment. And look at me, perfectly framed picture. Just a little bit, sir. Just a little bit. With that said, it's a strange kind of duality when you're into the performing arts world, because now you're in that public space. If you want to be acting on the regular, you have to be known by the public. So you have to kind of get yourself out there a little bit. But like I say, there's kind of like to me at least, there's a way that I feel comfortable with and a not so comfortable way to go about it. It's not so much going around being a big I am and look at me. It's a bit more considered than that. But basically the advice would boil down to work on your acting, make yourself visible, don't be shy. And as long as you're coming at it with the right attitude and with the humility to learn, and to again, in my case, to humbly walk in the footsteps of those who came before you. If you're doing it because you really love it and you have an appreciation for what you've seen and what's come before you, then I think that's a really good start. And people can find me online. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and everything. We actually have a website in development right now. It's not actually live yet, but that'll be up, I would have thought, within the next 6 months. So, people can always follow along with what I'm doing and maybe take some lead from that. What I'm doing right now can be of any kind of example to people, it might give them ideas. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of as well. So you can always kind of, I can talk, as you can well see. So if anybody wants to ask me for any thoughts on it, I'd be happy to help out, of course. So that would be my 2 cents for our Keep Kicking audience if they're interested in the
that's great. I appreciate that. So
my pleasure.
Appreciate that so much. So I keep these at about an hour. Is there anything that you didn't get a chance to say that you'd like to say?
No, that's perfect. With 10 seconds left on the recording, I think we've exactly 10.
They go over. It's fluid. Yeah. It's martial arts.
That's absolutely, sir. That's right. I just wanted to say, like I say, thank you very much, Paul, for having me on the show. I think it's really great what you're doing. I think the show's fantastic, and like I say, I am a listener. And you're an exceptional host. You are. You're in terms of your approach to the martial arts. You're more enlightened than most, and it's great that we've got your expertise at the forefront, leading the charge and running the show. So thank you very much for having me on. It is an honor, and I'm looking forward to the next episodes.
I appreciate that. I will say one of the quotes that I've lived my life by is Socrates, who said that I'm the smartest man alive, for I realize I know nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna lead with that. I will say I always thank my guests for coming on, because these conversations mean a lot to me. And then the second thank you is, now whether you like it or not, you are a part of my martial arts journey.
Thank you so much.
You've now folded into my 32 years of experience that is only going to continue, and I thank you for that. I thank everybody for listening, and always keep kicking.
Keep kicking, everybody. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Hope you all have had a wonderful holiday season, Christmas, New Year's, Samhain, whatever it is that you practice, study, celebrate. Hope that 2025 was as good to you or better to you than my 25 was to me. Sure, there were bumps in the road. Sure, there was plenty of not good. But 2025 has been a phenomenal year of growth and healing. And I am grateful for it. Here's to 2026. Here's to the new year and the new start for all of us. But some things stay the same. Always write the book, record the podcast, film the film, paint the painting, draw the drawing. All the things. Talk to the old friend and apologize. Meet the new friend. Hug those that you love tight. Because we don't know what's happening. We don't know where it's going. And at the end, the goal is to have given everything that we can back to whoever or whatever is inspiring you to do that giving. I love you all. Here's to 2026. Keep kicking.